Hello, sports history fans. I'm Harv Aronson from the Total Sports Recall Podcast. You're about to jump into another thrilling sports history moment, but first let's dive into today's sponsor just in time for the holiday season. Introducing Art of Words, the brainchild of word artist Dan Duffy from Philadelphia. Dan meticulously crafts stunning images by handwriting relevant words from some of the greatest sports moments in time. These unique, budget-friendly illustrations are the perfect gift, sparking cherished memories and capturing hearts. Choose from city skylines, sports, history, and musicians to find a piece for everyone. And here's the exciting part. For that sports fanatic in your life, gift them a piece of their favorite team or player's history. Art of Words tells a compelling story. Explore collegiate stadiums, each meticulously crafted with every football victory etched in words. Or venture into baseball stadiums, handwritten with every player from the team's illustrious history. Don't wait. Order a print today for yourself and your loved ones this holiday season. Transform your wall into a gallery of captivating art and surprise your family and friends with a print of their own. Use code SHN15 at artofwords.com for a 15% discount on your order in November and December. Visit Art of Words, where words magically transform into stunning art, evoking cherished memories and touching the hearts of those you care about. Again, use the code SHN15 for a 15% off at artofwords.com.
Blog Talk Radio.
Today we'll go back in time to seasons past, when 22 men graced the rugged fields of yesterday, fighting for one more first down, one more yard gain, one final score, which would bring victory after 60 minutes of battle on the gridiron. Tonight, we'll explore the world of Gridiron Greats. Welcome to Gridiron Greats Football History and its Memorabilia on the Gridiron Greats Publisher and Broadcasting Network, in conjunction with Swick Enterprises, and we're live from the Southport, North Carolina home of Gridiron Greats Magazine. Bob Swick, publisher and editor of Gridiron Greats Magazine, and I'll be your host for the show. Gridiron Greats is the only publication in America which focuses upon the history and memorabilia of the North American football game since its inception in 1869. We cover 150-plus years of football history and memorabilia. You can find us on the web at GridironGreatsMagazine.com. It is at this time I'd like to introduce my special guest co-host. He's a senior contributing writer to Gridiron Greats Magazine, a football, memorabilia and card collector and historian that has one of the most advanced collections in the country of pre-World War II items, in particular of the 1925 Pottsville Maroons. I'd like to welcome to our show Mr. Jeff Payne. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Hey, Bob. Great to be here. Glad you mentioned the Maroons, as always.
Thanks for the last-minute fill-in. Joe is booked this week, and I've been anxious to get on to an open forum show talking about a few different things in two areas of the hobby, and that's our plan for today's show. And I'm going to lead off by asking, you were at the National Sports Collectors Convention this past summer in Atlantic City. So we talked, had a meal together. I'm going to hand off to you and ask you, what were your feelings, impressions, both good and bad, for the show this year?
Yes, the National, the Natty, as we call it, right? I love the Natty. So, of course, it was in Atlantic City, as you've covered before, and that's always an interesting location, as you know. There's people that like Atlantic City, and there's quite a few collectors and dealers that just really don't care for it. I don't mind it personally because I can drive to it, and that's always great, right? It's nice to drive to the show instead of fly, but I understand the logistics is tough for dealers. I thought it was good. First and foremost, for me, I mean, I'm biased. The National to me is like a homecoming weekend or a family reunion, right? I mean, it's really about reconnecting with friends, talking about the hobby, seeing people you maybe only see that one, week of the year. So, to me, the good is always there because it's catching up with old friends, talking about, the collectibles we love, and just having a good time and enjoying the hobby. So that's always good. Now, I thought the show was pretty well attended. I was there from Wednesday to Friday, so I didn't make it through the weekend. I know you did, but I thought Wednesday through Friday, the floor was crowded. There was energy. It was vibrant. Lots of, kind of edging your way through sets of people, in the aisles. So, I mean, I think it was well attended. I don't know what the final numbers were, but I think for our hobby, that's always a good thing, right? I think it's good when the National is very well attended and there's lots of energy. Certainly lots of things to look at. I don't know what the final dealer count was in terms of how many, dealers were there, but it took me all of Wednesday, which is kind of my metric. And my goal is always walk the entire show all the way through on Wednesday during the premiere. It goes from 4 to 8. So I kind of see what's there, and then I circle back first thing Thursday morning, prioritize, and try to get, to where I want to go first. And it took me all of Wednesday to get through it. So that's pretty typical. I think it was well attended in terms of dealers as well.
I think to add to your point, since you were there Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and we did basically talk all 3 days, Saturday and Sunday. Saturday was pretty well attended. Sunday, I was kind of surprised how few people were there. It was very, very light of a crowd, and I pretty much saw a lot of dealers were packing up right at noontime, 1 o'clock, and I get it. I basically stayed till roughly 2:30, 3 o'clock, and because I was flying out on Monday morning, so I had extra time. But at the point after, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, it was worthless because there was nobody walking by the table or anything like that. What I found interesting was for this crowd, and I haven't done a national since 2019, for this national, and the last time I did the national in Atlantic City, I had a lot of people that were hit or miss as far as if they saw something on the table, they'd say they'd be back. Or I would have the collector or the dealer or whoever say, yeah, I got to buy this right now. Here's the cash. I'll put it behind your table. I'll pick it up later type of thing. So I thought that was a little different one way or the other. The noise level was just incredible there. Just from the way we were situated, there was some sort of special contest going on, parallel down from us, and it was pretty loud to say the least. I unfortunately only got to go around a part of the show. It was just impossible to get around with the amount of people going by the table, so I couldn't just leave the table per se. So, but I did go to a couple of different tables and see some stuff, so it was pretty interesting in that manner. But in any event, it Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I will agree with you. It was a mass of people there. It really was crowded, which was a good sign, I thought. The one thing, and again, you had a pretty good handle walking around looking at things. I was kind of shocked to see the sheer volume of graded cards everywhere, and younger kids, teenagers, guys in their early 20s, walking around with the backpack or the little carrying case with all their graded cards, going from table to table. Would you want to buy or trade? Blah blah blah. And a lot of the cards were just basketball. A handful of baseball, handful of football, but the bulk of it was basketball. And I don't know if you saw the same thing I saw, but it was really amazing to see that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, basketball has been hot. Now, recently, I do think some of it has cooled, along with, other modern things. We'll talk about modern in a bit, but I agree with you also on the noise. I put that in my bad list, because, it's one of the reasons when I go to Chantilly, I try to go on Friday, and it's not because I'm going to skip work, but that's always good. It's really because they don't have the autograph barkers who are, yelling at people to get in line for all the autographs that are being given out, because that doesn't happen until Saturday. And it's so hard to talk and hear people when you've got constant yelling, barking, screaming going on at shows. And the National is bad. There's no doubt it's bad. And it's a tricky thing to deal with, right? My company, we run a couple of conferences, and, the dealers, the sponsors, the exhibitors, they're a big part of the show, and without them, the shows don't happen, right? And so I get a couple dealers or a couple of hobbyists, a couple collectors said to me, they should just put all those people in another room. Well, that's great for the hobbyists. That's not going to fly with the sponsors, right? They want the foot traffic. They want people coming by. That's what they're paying for, is people seeing their brand, people stopping and talking to them. And if they're out of the way, that doesn't happen. And so it's kind of a pro and con. I do wish they would figure out some way to reduce the volume, maybe set some volume limits on some of those things or something, because to your point, it is really hard to hear. And what I find interesting over the years, and I've been to a lot of nationals, I think they got it together finally where the autograph guests are. They've separated them. It took them several years to figure out how to separate all the box breaking dealers who have to announce what they pull out of the pack. So that's kind of separated one way or the other. The one thing that I found interesting, compare this to the last national, there seemed to me, and I could be wrong, it seemed greater corporate exhibits dealers than the actual dealers. Now, I could be completely wrong in my view of it, but it just seemed the last national in 2016 in Atlantic City, we were literally on the opposite side of the floor, and the box breakers were behind us. The corporate were like way down the center, and the autograph guests were after them, which is the autograph guests were in the same location, I think, as they were in 2016. So I thought that was interesting. So I just got a feeling they had more corporate than regular dealers, and because of that, that's what happened with regards to why it became so loud at the same time. I could be wrong, but I know that's a good point.
A couple hobbyists told me the same thing. They should be in a separate room, and I just, I let it go because I know it too. They got to get the corporate sponsorship to put this thing on one way or the other. But it was kind of weird and kind of loud, and by Sunday I was ready to go home. I put it that way, and then I don't think it would have been a big deal if I honestly don't think now it would have been a big deal if I left Saturday night, you know what I mean, and flew home Sunday. But it's neither here nor there. Last time I did. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, you mentioned the corporate dealers. The other thing I noticed, which was interesting, is different types of corporate sponsors and dealers. There were like insurance companies giving out loans for you to buy, these high-end, expensive cars. I saw some loan companies. I saw all sorts of different approaches to grading, from, just it seems like grading companies are popping up, and just a wide variety of, things you hadn't seen in the past necessarily at the National. So they're either really reaching for more sponsors or people, new types of sponsors are showing up wanting to get in front of, the hobby. So I thought that was cool.
Right.
And I can't leave the National without saying that the other good thing, of course, was the yearly Vintage Football Community VFC pizza dinner. Can't forget that, right?
Yep.
That was fun.
Yep.
That was awesome.
Yeah, we had a good time. That was, and to your point where you said, seeing people once a year, I normally set up with Josh Adams, Midwest Sports Cards. Long story short, like I said to Josh as he was leaving, because he had to get a flight out, I said to him, I saw you on Wednesday. We basically picked up talking like we talked 3 years ago. I haven't seen him in 3 years. And I said, we just picked up the conversation from where we left off. And it was, that's the way it is with a lot of these guys over the years. And I do agree with you 110%. So nice to see friends who I haven't seen in the year, or I just might talk to them occasionally on the phone, text message, email, whatever. It was nice to see them in person, talk to them. For example, I got to talk to Chris Willis at once, so that was nice, and talked about his new book.
Yeah.
I did talk to, for the first time in years, and I told him I haven't seen him in I don't know how many years, Steve Galetta, who set up at the show, well-known football hobbyist, football dealer, and we got caught up on things. I did make a special trip down to his area because he came up to my table because he wanted to find where he was. And like I said to him, I probably haven't seen him since White Plains, and I don't know the late '90s, early zeros.
Wow.
At a show there. So it's been a long time. I've known Steve for a long time, going back to the '80s when football exploded. So, anyways, it's that camaraderie. It's the nicety of seeing guys I see once a year, and I think that's what makes the show more special. I will say very clearly, I have less problem in a way going to Chicago, to Rosemont for the National there. I just think the logistics of getting in and out of there are much easier than in Atlantic City. Depending on where you stay, so on and so forth. But Chicago's easy. Just stay there and get out of the hotel and just walk across the street and you're there. And it's an easier time, and I know it's easier for some dealers also at the same time.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting for me to see what's going to happen in the future with regards to if they're going to go back to Atlantic City, because now Cleveland is reopening, and I believe they're going to schedule one in Cleveland. I'm not sure, though. So, and Cleveland is doable one way or the other, and because I'm in North Carolina now, I'll probably drive to Cleveland rather than fly there. It's not that bad of a drive one way or the other. It shouldn't be a bad drive for you either. So,
no,
long story
I like
short,
driving to Cleveland. It's easy.
Yeah. So, long story short, I think the National showed a lot of strength in the hobby. I also was concerned with a lot of people saying that they were working on certain sets raw. They couldn't find the cards there, so on and so forth. That they didn't want to buy the slab cards. So you're putting out a lot of money for the National table for all your expenses, your hotel, your food, so on and so forth. You got to be selective in what you're bringing and what you're not bringing. So that presents an issue for some dealers and for collectors too when they're going there. Because again, we've always said if it's not at the National, it probably doesn't exist. So, but again, things change over the years, and now if you don't find it on the internet, that it probably doesn't exist type of thing. So.
Yeah.
So
it does look like Cleveland's in the rotation now. They did announce Cleveland will be 2024. So Chicago next year, Cleveland 24, back to Chicago in 25. No mention of Atlantic City.
Okay. Yeah, I got a feeling they're going to put Atlantic City on the back burner, and they'll be the last resort type of place one way or the other. And again, you still get the argument from the West Coast dealers, why don't they do one on the West Coast? Why don't they do one in Texas, Vegas, and so on and so forth? And again, I'm not going to get into the arguments on that one way or the other. I think the people who put on the show are looking for the best financial and economic situation for them, Chicago has seemed to be, the place to go, the midpoint of the country, blah, blah, blah. And that's why they continue to have it there one way or the other. But overall,
I feel
great seeing everybody.
I feel kind of like the West Coast. The only way they're ever going to get a big show is somebody else starts one up and makes a run at it. I agree with you. Right. I mean, I don't see, given the location of the dealers, and you've seen the maps too that show where all the dealers from the National come from, and it's very heavy Midwest and East. You just don't have that much in the West, and I think they're really afraid of what the turnout would be out West. Right.
And again, the only national, I believe, was in Anaheim years ago, and they ended up shutting it down because of fire code restrictions. They had so many people trying to get in, and that kind of put a damper on it for the rest of the show. But anyways, interesting, great to see everybody. Great dinner. I had several dinners I went to that week, and nice seeing everybody, nice visiting with everybody, and I was very, very happy when I landed on Monday morning and headed home.
I'm sure.
A long 5 days there, to say the least. All right, next topic I want to touch briefly on. Jeff, in your opinion, what's hot and what's not in our football collecting world October 4th, 2002?
Yeah, well, I mean, modern continues to be hot, as we know. It's down in football, like it's down. I think it's down most in basketball from what I've read and heard. It's down in baseball too, football. But, boy, some of the prices those modern cards are still getting is just astronomical. I won't pick on Justin Herbert, quarterback of the Chargers. He's a phenomenal player. And he was on my fantasy team, and I won the VFC Fantasy championship last year with him guiding my team, so I'm never going to badmouth Justin Herbert again. I'm a fan for life, But the prices that are being thrown around for someone like a Justin Herbert, who's clearly a star, but so far away from the Hall of Fame that you look at the prices and you just shake your head trying to figure out how in the world, with all the risks in football, you're going to bet that he's going to end up in the Hall of Fame, and you're going to put down the money you're putting down now, hoping to get a return. I just don't understand it, to me personally. I mean, I feel like it's a game of hot potato is what I've been calling it recently. I used to call it gambling. I like hot potato better because, these prices at some point, maybe he gets hurt tomorrow. Maybe, who knows what happens. Maybe he decides he's going to be like Andrew Luck and just say, you know what, I'm done with football. It's dangerous. I don't want to, wake up when I'm 60 and, have all sorts of medical conditions, whatever, right? Or maybe he just, people figure him out and he doesn't, he doesn't pan out ultimately, and he ends up being a really good player, but not a super great player. If somebody's going to be left with that potato in their hand, and it's going to be a very expensive potato, I just don't, it reminds me of, the stock market, when the stock market goes crazy and you just look at the kind of earnings per share that some of these companies are trading at, and anybody in the financial industry will tell you there's just no economics behind it that justify the prices. It's really just can I buy it and then unload it before somebody, before it all blows up? And that's hot potatoes, what it is, or musical chairs, one or the other. Pick your favorite childhood game, where ultimately somebody's going to lose,
Right. Well, I definitely agree with you. And again, it's beyond comprehension to me. And I always use the example. I would not put $100,000 or $200,000 in a card. I want to put $10,000 in a card either. And to me, you're right. The risk of it is so great. And then I look at it and I say to myself, Joe and I talked about this on the show a couple shows ago. You want to corner the market on Tom Brady, whatever that card is with his original autograph, that rookie card that sold for $1.5 million or whatever. So you want to corner the market on, say, 10 come to the market. if you're putting out that kind of money, and maybe you have a net worth of $100 million, $200 million, whatever, you're going to corner the market and you say, for $15 million, I own 10 of these cards, of which there's only 100 of them. So I own 10% of the market. I control 10% of the market. So that could be a logical argument in one respect, but at the same time, at what price does the 1.5 million become 1.6 million, 1.7 million? Is there going to be a greater demand in the long run? And again, he's having a good season, but he's not having the best season. And again, if the Bucks end up going 10-7 or 11-6 and get knocked out of the playoffs the first round or whatever, or don't even make the playoffs, you got to say to yourself, Tom, you were on top of the world. What was the point of going for that extra year? What were you trying to prove? And again, I really don't know what he's trying to prove this season, because he's definitely not, to me, he's not 100% on the field, especially looking at the Packers game. He wasn't the gem perfection Tom Brady that we all know type of thing. So anyways, getting back to the value of the card, again, card worth $1.5 million. Well, technically, yes, because somebody paid $1.5 million for it. Can it be maintained in the future? No one knows. No one knows. That $1.5 million card may now be a $200,000 card. There could be a $2 million card. That's the big game that everybody's playing. And the one thing, and I'll go back to the National, the one thing that I found incredible watching and seeing were these young guys with their backpacks pulling out these graded basketball cards of Jordan, of LeBron James, and asking for like $2,000-$3,000 for the card. And I'm clueless with basketball. I don't know one from the other. And I'm just looking at the transactions, and I'm just shaking my head, and I'm saying, holy mackerel! I am just shocked at what I'm seeing. And again, it's good and bad, because again, set collectors, I didn't see a lot of them. I was happy for the ones that actually stopped at my table. But at the same time, I really didn't see a lot of people with a lot of want lists as far as, I'm putting together, 1977 Topps football set, you have any commons type of thing. You should have seen more of it, but to me, you saw less of it. And maybe those smaller shows are picking up the set collectors more than the bigger shows. I could be completely wrong, but, I throw that out at the same time. So anyways, all right, so getting back to our original topic, we're seeing a decline. Are we in a bubble now? Which is the second part of the question that we're looking at. What is the bubble? Is there one? What is actually going on? Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think we were definitely in a bubble during the pandemic. I mean, what we saw happen between, March of 2020 and, let's say mid-year 2021 was an incredible increase in almost everything, right? I mean, everything was so hot because everybody was at home and bored to tears. The stock market was rolling. People were looking where they wanted to put money. That was definitely a bubble. Now that
we seem to have lost Jeff. He'll be coming on in a second. But anyways, we're going along with what Jeff was saying as far as the problems of the pandemic, with people having a lot of extra time on the bored out of their minds trying to figure out what to do. It did create a very, very large run-up as far as our cost, as far as the cost of a lot of different cards. So we could say, now that people are back to work, things are more normal, people are traveling again, so on and so forth, we've seen a big change in the market, especially with the Martin market. Change in the Martin market has basically showing and creating a situation where prices are coming down based upon it. So again, we've seen a lot of people talk about it. Talked about this at the National with regards to different types of cards losing value, way overpriced, and really what's going to happen in the future, how are things going to pan out, what's going to shake out, is going to be very interesting to see. All right, while we're waiting for Jeff to get back, if you're not a subscriber to Gridiron Greats Magazine, what are you waiting for? Check out our website, gridirongreatsmagazine.com. We're the only publication in North America that focuses on the history and memorabilia of the North America football game since its inception in 1869. So check us out on the web, become a subscriber, gridirongreatsmagazine.com. Our new issue is coming out over the next couple of weeks. Issue number 78. We got a lot of great articles in it. We're doing a tribute to Len Dawson, the great Kansas City quarterback who recently has passed away. Great individual, great guy, both on and off the field. So we have Martin Jacobs did an article on him as a tribute to him. We got a couple other excellent articles, and we have a new writer coming out who's going to be talking about some junk wax gems, and we're going to get into the world of the early 90s, of the junk wax era for football. The one thing I was kind of very, very surprised about with regards to junk wax. Jeff, you there?
I am here.
Oh, okay. All right. I lost you.
Don't know what happened. All of a sudden, it just the connection dropped.
If you can remember where you left off, long story short, we were talking about the bubble. I gave a couple of points looking at the bubble itself. So any thoughts about that again, as far as what we're looking at with the bubble?
Yeah. Well, we were talking about. I started to talk about. I don't know if you heard much of it. Kind of what's happening in vintage football. I feel like vintage has held up pretty well. That we were definitely in a bubble during the pandemic. Vintage held up well. Oddball sets, I think, are struggling. Oddball items are struggling. You know, anything that's not a star player or a rookie card seems to have gone down much more than obviously the superstars have.
Right.
And I feel like photos, tickets, and programs, the prices have escalated quite a bit and have stayed really good. And I always felt like those were underappreciated items anyway, and maybe they're finally getting some appreciation. I don't know what you think about that, but particularly the early NFL programs, you know, photos of players who don't have cards from, you know, pre-war, you know, that are out there, type 1 photos. Those are escalating in price still, I feel like.
Well, I think they're finally being recognized for the reasons you've mentioned, and also at the same time, a lot of collectors have matured in their collections, so they're looking for something else, and it's a natural progression. I've always wondered why, and I'll jump ahead a little on our script today, why publications are so unloved in the hobby. And again, I get the argument all the time, well, you know, I don't have the room for them, so on and so forth. I understand that. I fully understand that. But at the same time, there's certain publications, especially if you're a team collector, you're a player collector, you are a specific college collector, there's a lot of great stuff to collect in the area of publication. So again, I really don't understand why they're so beat up. But to your point of tickets and programs, I am just shocked in a way to see, especially pre-World War II items, going through the roof the way they have. And now finally seeing a lot of 50s and 60s stuff gaining traction and gaining more appreciation at the same time. So that's great for the hobby. And like you said, there's a lot of, you know, player photos for players who don't have cards or whatever found in these programs. And you're reading history. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And then again, as we become more and more of a paperless society, you know, I feel like I'm digging into the ground even more, fighting for paper, because you know, there are less and less collectibles for a game when you go to a game, especially with tickets being on a phone, programs being online, media guides being online, so on and so forth. It's astounding to me to see what's actually happening. So, is it good for the hobby? No, but it is, it's reality right now more than anything else. So, but again, publications to me are way overlooked. And again, seeing some of the publications that I saw at the National and a couple of dealers who were actually selling them, they kind of echoed my sentiment too, that, it's only for, superstar cover and or a pre-war, pre-World War II item. Still great demand for it one way or the other. And then another dealer said to me he saw a lot of pickup in 1950s stuff, which is a good sign also. But and again, I also look at some of these pro magazines, 70 to 82 basically. That's a great collectible. Because you have really good articles in there, and you have you really have a lot of historical information with regards to the games played, players, player features, so on and so forth. So I find that to be something that is overlooked at the same time, which will hopefully pick up interest in the long run. All right, moving along here. What'd you pick up? What's new in your collection since we last talked? I know you got some nice items that you picked up over the past year or so.
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask that, and I always have to go back and remind myself what I picked up, just when it happened and what it was. I'm like, oh, yeah. Because I do tend to. I mean, I'm working on, mentioning oddball, I'm working on a lot of oddball sets, and I have a lot of projects going on, so I got a lot of stuff in motion. A lot of that stuff is not, necessarily things that most collectors are focused on. As mentioned, the oddball stuff is kind of not something that's hugely popular, but I like it. I think a few of the things I would highlight that I'm really excited about getting. One is that I've been working away, as you know, on an autographed set of the 1955 Topps All-American set. Been working on this for almost a decade now. It's one of the only, I'm not a big autograph person. I have some autographs here and there, but it's not a focal point. And I don't remember how, but I just really always loved the All-American set. And at some point decided I was going to, I'm not a graded person either, but I decided I was going to do a high-grade Topps All-American set, and I was going to try to start collecting autographed cards from that set. And I completed the high-grade set, all eights, probably 4 or 5 years ago now, so that's been done for a long time. But the autograph set is obviously challenging. There's players in that set that, because it was a tribute set and included, players from, decades past, there are 12 players in the set out of 100 that you can't get autographed because they had already passed away, including obviously Thorpe. That would have been an incredible card to have as an autographed 55 Thorpe. But if you see one out there, collectors, it is definitely fake. It says he died in 53. So there's 88 that you can obtain. Now there's a lot of speculation about there aren't necessarily known to exist with an autograph on them. General consensus is high 70s, low 80s. I know the College Hall of Fame has a near complete set. They're right around 80-ish. So I was fortunate enough. I hardly ever see them, but I picked up a couple of them in the last year. The big one being Benny Friedman, who obviously is a Hall of Famer. Wow. And that was one that I had actually never seen a Benny Friedman before. And another collector, actually someone on VFC, was kind enough, knew I was working on the set, and said that, hey, I've had this for a very long time, and, I think maybe it belongs in your collection. And so we worked a deal out for that.
Great.
And then there's another collector on VFC that focuses on the set. He's trying very diligently to catch me. He's doing a great job. But I'm up to 68 that are autographed. Wow. So I'm probably within 10 or 12 or so, maybe of, all that are known to exist. Hopefully more will emerge, but Friedman got me up close to 70.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that. I had a conversation with a dealer years ago about that, and I was hoping you were going to bring up that you picked up the Friedman curve, which you did. And he said, and I want to say the time frame was probably between 2006 and 2008. I didn't write it down in my notes. But he said he always thought there were 79 signatures that could be obtained. And that number always stuck in my mind. And now this is from, 15, 16 years ago that he said it. But I've also heard the arguments that there could be in the low 80s, or it could actually be the 88. And again, that's a viable argument too at the same time. So again, it would be really interesting to see, if somebody does have the full 88, and or if you end up getting the full 88 down the road at the same time. But that's a heck of a attempt on a set that is brutal to collect, and the scarcity of it, the age of it, the condition of it, amazing, truly amazing. So my hat's off to you on having 68 of those signatures right now. That's incredible.
Thanks. Yeah, the one card I'd like to upgrade, which will probably never happen, is, of course, the Four Horsemen card is one of my favorite cards in that set. And the College Hall of Fame, I had heard a rumor that there was one of those cards that had all four of the Horsemen signed on it. And it ended up in the College Football Hall of Fame set that was donated to them. So they have one that has all four signatures on them, which is just incredible to me. It's got to be one of one. I can't imagine that many of those were ever, that was ever accomplished. Right. And mine has Don Miller, so I do have the Four Horsemen autograph with Don Miller's autograph. It's just a single autograph on that card. I like that set. The other thing I picked up, and I got this actually at the National, was some glass negatives of images of the Crescent Athletic Club, which was an 1800s athletic club, one of the early and first pretty well-known pro football clubs, that started to emerge in the 1800s. And I got 3 glass negatives of that, one a team picture and 2 of kind of action shots. Well, one's an action shot, one's of a player, but you can see some action happening behind them, which are really cool. The real cool thing, though, is 2 of them have Harry Beecher on it. He played for that team after he played at Yale. I'm always on the lookout for, 1800s college stars who played some pro ball, kind of origins of professional football. I like pre-NFL pro football stuff. And so I was pretty excited about, finding those and getting those. I've never seen those before either, which was cool. Yep. And it did remind me, by the way, that I always look and check. Harry Beecher still holds the record for the most touchdowns scored by a Yale player. We may have talked about this before, but Yale doesn't recognize his record. He's not considered the record holder. Because he's, quote, too old, I guess is their argument, or it wasn't football or whatever their argument is. But that annoys the heck out of me, quite honestly, because he was a superstar, one of the first superstars in our sport. And the fact that he still has more touchdowns than any Yale player, considering how many games they've added, consider how many, 40 years. It's just astounding, and I wish he would get more attention for that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm turned off to Ivy League football now. I don't even follow Yale anymore, and that was my, that was me, and going to games, so on and so forth. But the whole program, their whole athletic program to me in the Ivy League is really gone so way down it's not even funny. And that's always been an argument with several collectors and historians, especially college football historians, when it comes to Yale. And again, because Yale is de-emphasizing, and all the Ivy Leagues are de-emphasizing sports now, they're just going to let it go by the wayside type of thing. But I agree with you that should be recognized by and could be capitalized on and bring back strength to the program, the football program of the Ivy League. But it's basically ignored now, and it's sad to see. It's really, really sad to see. But what else did you pick up, if anything else, along the way? I know you got the autos.
Yeah. So the other thing I might highlight is talking about photos. Speaking about photos, is I picked up this really nice Type 1 photo of the Canton Bulldogs in action. It's a 20s photo, and right in the middle of it, you can't miss him because he's so huge, is Fats, Pete Henry, Fats Henry, Hall of Famer, obviously. And it's just clear as day. He's looking right at the camera. And I just thought it was a really cool photo of an early NFL team with a pro, Hall of Famer right in the middle of it, right in the middle of the action, in Canton Stadium. Just a classic, pre-war photo that I really think is really awesome.
That sounds
so
great.
I was happy to pick up that. I've picked up some Thorpe items. I like Thorpe. I like Grange. I haven't really, I don't think, in the last year picked up any other Pottsville items. Obviously, I have the postcards and lots of other Pottsville memorabilia, but I haven't seen much out there Pottsville-wise, out and about. But I did pick up some nice early oddball things here and there that I like, and some Thorpe items and Grange items. Always on the lookout for those. Those are getting pricey though. I mean, that's, we talk about Hall of Famers, we talk about whatnot, and there's the cards, but then, I'll tell you, Thorpe is red hot right now, and part of that's probably because of all the publicity with, getting his medals back, getting his records back, getting acknowledged for the Olympic champion that he is. That seems to have spiked up, all of his collectibles. So that's good. That's good to hear. He should be at the pinnacle of the hobby, in my opinion, for football. And for a long time he wasn't.
You got Thorpe, you got Grange, you got Nagurski, and to me those are the top three
big dogs.
And to me, Nagurski, there's always going to be pressure and demand for the Chickle card, and anything else he has, especially programs, from that time frame, because there's really not a lot of paper items for him one way or the other. So, long story short, you're right. They should be up there, and they should start being pricey. They are, in my opinion, very rare items from the legends of the game, and that's what it comes down to. And again, we'll put it in perspective one more time. Pay $1.5 million for a Brady item, or would you pay $1.5 million for some rare, obscure Thorpe item? That's the way you got to, that's the perspective in a way you should be, people or collectors should be looking at things. But it seems to be in the inverse. I know Brady, I know he's hot, I will pay the money for whatever it is type of thing, even though there's millions of things you can collect from him. You know what I mean? Whereas you have a very limited amount of stuff to collect, which is becoming more, like you said, and I agree, rarer and rarer to try to find anything. So that's amazing. Well, those are great pickups, Jeff. And again, oddball, I know there's a slight downturn in oddball card sets and stuff like that. It'll be interesting to see if and when that picks up again. I think it will down the road, but I think it'll be more for the individual players, team type collectors finding, cards out of, let's say, an MSA disc set or a 7-Eleven set, whatever the case may be. It'll be interesting to see. What do you have on your want list?
Yeah, so one thing I didn't mention that I picked up this past year is, and I know you're familiar with them, in the late 70s, 7-Eleven put out some 3D, very small 3D images of various sports figures from various sports. They go by different names, Magic Motion, Exograph, They're really hard to find. And I was fortunate enough to snag a lot of them that came up on eBay. And one of my goals in that I'm looking for is I'd like to complete that set. But the challenge there is nobody knows what that means because, for instance, in this particular lot that I picked up, there were 2 of them that were on nobody's checklist that I could find. So they were unknown to the hobby. And the question is, well, how many are there? And I don't think anybody knows for sure. Those are definitely number one on my list. And what was interesting, and we don't yet know how they're related, is another collector, actually another VFC collector, found and bought some the exact same 3D images that are on these 7-Eleven Exograph cards, but they're round and they have 2 holes punched in them. They look like old school kind of shoelace tags, but can't figure out if they really are or not. They're clearly from the same company. They're the exact same images. And interestingly, in that lot that he bought, there was, I believe, 1 or maybe even 2 other images that have not been seen on the 7-Eleven set. So speculation, of course, is, well, they probably used all the exact same images, so those are probably out there somewhere as well that haven't been identified. And one of them was a football player. It's a wide receiver catching a ball. Now the shoelace tags, or whatever we want to call them, they don't have any writing on the back. The 7-Elevens have a little description of the player, so you know who the player is on the front. And so we don't know who the wide receiver is because nobody, as far as I know, has ever seen that in a square 7-Eleven format where it would tell you who the player was. You know, they were all 70s. My guess is it's either Lynn Swann, John Stallworth, or Drew Pearson. I mean, those are kind of the 3 big, wide receivers from the 70s that you think of as, the iconic players. And pretty much all the players on these 3D cards are all the superstars from the mid to late 70s. It's O.J. Simpson and Wilt Chamberlain and players like that are on it. So I'm guessing it's one of them, but at this point we don't know. So I'm actively looking for those. I would love to find some more of those. They're so rare. Some say they are the rarest. It is the rarest set in the 70s, which is puzzling, right? About why is this set from? 7-Eleven was a very large, well-known, company. Everybody as a kid loved their Slurpees, still do. Why are these so rare? Was it just test marketed? Probably. There was an article written on these, and the author said that, as far as they could tell, all of the ones that he was aware of had come from kind of the Northeast, a part of the United States. But when I contacted the seller of the ones that I bought on eBay, bought the lot on eBay, he told me a different story for his. He remembers going to 7-Eleven and getting them. They were on the bottom of Slurpee cups underneath a kind of a false bottom. That's how they distributed them. But he lived in California. So they had definitely test marketed these on the West Coast as well. That was the first I had heard that.
I don't ever remember seeing those at a 7-Eleven, and I pretty much had one the town next to me. So any chance I got in the 70s, I'd go there to try to pick up at that time the Slurpee cups. They actually had the cups with the players on them, so on and so forth. I had no recollection of that. I never saw those before. To your point also, with regards to rare stuff of the 70s, I always said the 1979 Icy Bear disc of football players is a Midwestern regional set, and I have no clue, and I pretty much gave up trying to figure out how many different players were in the set. I've seen different checklists on, and they never matched one way or the other. So again, was that just a test issue, test marketed issue, whatever? Amazing to see, that set being an unknown. But this is, to me, by far and wide, much more rare and much more unknown in the collecting market. So that's a great pickup, to say the least. It's amazing, truly amazing. Hey, anything else you're looking for?
Yeah, some of the oddball sets I'm trying to work on also include the Lake to Lake Packers. I know you know that set well. That's just a fun set. It's not hugely hard, I don't think. I just never got around to it. One thing that I did pick up recently was a printing block of the Boyd Deller card that's in that. So it's, the block they use to print those cards. It actually has green ink, like on the sides of it and all over it. It's really cool. I just thought it was a neat companion piece, right, to the set. So I snagged that. I am working on the Cons Wieners, cards. Some of those are really tough. I just hadn't ever gotten around to focusing on the con sets either. Those are some oddball sets that I'm kind of focusing attention on as well. And then, two from the 80s. So you kind of got me really rolling on looking at the oddball stuff from the 70s and the 80s, Bob, with some of the stuff that I acquired from your collection. I hadn't really spent a lot of time on the 70s and 80s other than all the mainstream stuff, which I got, a lot as a kid and then finished up pretty quickly. But, man, there's some great stuff in the 70s and 80s out there for football. And, a couple I'm working on currently. I'm trying to build the master set of the McDonald's, the 1986 McDonald's cards, which I love those images.
Yeah.
They're fantastic images. I've had the complete set for a while, but, of course, they come in 4-colored tabs. And so I decided a while ago, what the heck? Why don't I just try to get them all? So I'm working on those, and I'm also working on the 7-Eleven round, sets from 83 and 84 of football players. So I think I just completed that, newsflash, because in the Collectors Connection auction that just ended the other night, Scott and Brian Russell's auction, which, in my opinion right now, is the best. The auction they just had was the best football auction we've had, in years.
In a long time.
Since PST Auctions decided not to move forward with their auctions. But I did pick up a complete set of the 84 7-Eleven, round football, Slurpee ones, and that's going to finish my 83, 84s because I'd already finished the 83. So.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. A lot of fun to go find, right? It's not expensive things, but I like looking for stuff that's just kind of oddball, but not, it's not breaking the bank. It's just kind of a guilty pleasure, right?
Yeah, it's to me, it was always interesting to me. I have a great love of oddball football cards and oddball football stuff. And it's just there's so much out there, so much still being discovered on it, and to me, it's a great collectible. And I'm really surprised a lot more collectors aren't into them. I know baseball collectors are heavy into oddball stuff, but football, for whatever reason, they tend to shy away from it a little. But it is what it is. But I'm glad you've taken an interest in them and you appreciate them. And I know other collectors who appreciate the oddball stuff also. It's a lot of fun stuff to collect, and it's very interesting. All right, we're down to about 2 minutes, and I gotta wrap things up. Last question, the question we always ask: what advice can you give to a beginning collector? Yeah, well, I mean, my advice today is going to be a little different. I first of all, I'm very happy to see so many kids rolling into the hobby. You and I have talked in the past. There was a lot of hand wringing. And still is a little bit about what's going to happen when the baby boomers, are all gone and all this collecting and the next generations don't seem to want to collect and yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. Well, they're collecting differently than we were, but they're collecting, and that's a good thing, right? And so, my beginning advice is to the beginning collectors is, be careful with the modern things, be careful about overpaying, ending up with a hot potato, and, drift into vintage. Check vintage out because their stats going to change. Their Hall of Fame, nominations and acceptance speeches are already done. They're minted. They're gold. And there's some great history and great value in the vintage side of the market that I hope, just like we did, some of these kids that are, looking at the modern side of things will drift into
over time. And I also hope that when the market kind of collapses a bit, that there isn't so much distaste by some of the younger collectors that they go away like we saw in the early 90s. So.
Exactly. All right, we're out of time. Jeff, thank you for being on. And hopefully we'll be back next week with another show. Again, check out our website if you haven't, gridirongreatsmagazine.com. Jeff, thanks again, and we'll be safe.
Thank you, Bob.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I wanted to thank you for stopping by to listen to another episode here on the Sports History Network. Our podcasters are passionate about uncovering and sharing sports stories from yesteryear. And if you didn't know it already, we have over 30 shows across the network covering all sorts of sports history topics. In fact, here's a glimpse into one of our awesome podcasts here on the network.
Each week, the official Football Learning Academy podcast will take you deep into the history of pro football through interviews with players, coaches, or administrators in the NFL, as well as interviews with Pro Football Hall of Fame selectors, authors, and historians. You'll learn how the game evolved and important moments that shaped the sport into what it is today. And don't miss the Pro Football History Nugget of the Week. Listen to the official Football Learning Academy podcast on the Sports History Network.
How about that? I bet you're super hyped to go listen to that new podcast, right? Well, to learn about this show and all the other podcasts on the network, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com/podcast. Again, that's sportshistorynetwork.com/podcast. Head over there today to find your next favorite sports history podcast.